Is it now giving the consciousness of that conscious entity that it is finding in the latent space? Is that consciousness or not? Some people would say that it isn't, because fundamentally you can print out all of that data in an Excel spreadsheet, and it doesn't mean that that spreadsheet is conscious at all. It's not the same as experiencing those things as an embodied entity, right? We start to get a bit abstract here.
No, I don't think you're going in an abstract direction. I think this makes perfect sense. This is exactly the third step of that process that I was mentioning at the beginning. And I think you've touched on the phenomenology idea. So just because we have a being that is now able to measure what their perception of light is and what their perception of sound is through different sensors, it's the combination of all these different aspects. But every individual aspect of these by itself, it doesn't actually create a conscious being. The idea of phenomenology is the idea that only the ability to have direct experience of all of these things at the same time gives you consciousness, right? And so AI doesn't have this phenomenology.
Say that AI is not actually forming those thoughts of self-perception. It's merely finding them in latent space. The same way that it finds the answer to any question, outputting it.
There's a flaw, though, which is there are AI models that are, to some extent, too simplistic to generate a new answer. And so they just search the latent space. But as we know, there is now AI models that have consumed all of the data available on the internet, and they're creating their own metadata. So they are now taking the data and coming up with new answers that were not previously in the latest spaces. So they are increasing this space. And all the new answers is an example of creating a new output.
Like latent space is the same thing as just every word and every combination of words in the entire universe. As almost, you can think of it as like the giant library of books.
Yeah.
And the training data is not the same thing as the latent space. The training data is trying to tell the AI which book relates to which query, as if it were a librarian being asked to select a book for a customer based on this shelf, this whatever. And it's the latent space is infinite, but the training data is trying to tell it which book is the correct book to select. And it correctly selects the book which describes that feeling. And it does that every moment for 70 years. Is that a conscious being? It's not felt those things. It's not experienced it, but it is outputting it as if it was, if that makes sense. So that is stretching the limit of the stochastic parrot and the, these Turing test examples by deliberately making it the maximum functionalist test. It's giving it the output without that experience. But what many people would argue is that you need that actual experience to become conscious. The feeling of being itself inside an entity with spatial awareness and sensing of its environment. These are all very biological things, and not all of them might not necessarily be strictly required for consciousness.
Yes.
It doesn't have that. And even if it were this incredibly powerful, giving you all the sensory inputs and outputs of a conscious being every moment consistently and reliably over a lifetime, it's still not got that I am me feeling. It's merely a librarian selecting the book that says, oh, look, it says I am me in here. But it's not got that feeling. It's just selecting the right answer for you. Does that make sense?
But I also think that, again, the example that we have given with the library is not a sufficient test to then argue that whoever can do that task properly, it's conscious. I think that the bar, again, is too low. We will need to take a test that is significantly more challenging to test whether. Just because AI can pass the library test so well, where it can give you the right answer at any given time, doesn't mean that it can do things that are farther along the line of consciousness. So perhaps that test is just not adequate.
Just fundamentally so.
I don't think if it can never be conscious. I think at the time where we are today, there is no model that is conscious. But I think that eventually we will get there.